Good evening. I'd like to call the City Council of the City of San Bruno to order for its meeting of September 8th. I'd like to begin by thanking the San Bruno Garden Club for the floral arrangement they've presented for this evening's meeting. And if we could have roll call, please.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Ruane.
Here.
Mayor Franzella.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
And it should be noted for the public that Councilman Ibarra is excused this evening. He's on vacation. Announcements. Following tonight's meeting, there'll be a redevelopment agency meeting. And I've skipped over the pledge, and if I could ask our city clerk, Carol Bonner, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Number 4, presentations. There are none this evening. Review of agenda. I have no changes to make on the agenda. Approval of minutes of the special council study session meeting of August 25th and the regular council meeting of August 25th. Minutes will stand approved as submitted unless there's any changes or corrections. Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved. Consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implement an earlier council action may be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion unless requested by council member, citizen, or staff. I'd like to pull item 7E. And is there anything else?
Move to approve the remainder of the consent calendar.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Item E, resolution authorizing the closure of San Mateo Avenue between Genevieve and Sylvan Avenue on Sundays from October 25th, 2009 through November 22nd, 2009 between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. for farmers market. This is for an extension of time on the farmers market. I just wanted to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce on the great job and the operators of the farmers market that they've done down there and the success that it's been. We've heard from a number of merchants how pleased they are with the turnout and how things are going. And so I just wanted to publicly announce that it would be extending to November 22nd. And I believe Councilmember Medina, you had some comments.
Thank you, through the chair. Couple items on this as well, to echo what the mayor said. Yes, a success of going down there. I think it's a very positive attribute to the community and to the avenue. From my understanding from staff, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, this was a question that came up from some of the citizens that I'm going to bring forward, is one, a concern had been when we initiated this was overtime. And in some challenging budgetary times, was there going to be overtime? We said no, but again, was there really going to be? And as of today's date, I'm understanding that there has been no overtime spent on city staff for the farmers market that is on San Mateo Avenue. Also in the report, it does stipulate as far as a porta potty, which when we met with the subcommittee, we had gone and thought a business teaming up with them was a more viable opportunity than a porta potty. Maybe that should be reflected in the report because it states where the porta potty should be, and it maybe should be so that the option is available, and so it's listed in the report. The only other two quick items were, there was some question in regards to the emergency access and availability for emergency vehicles to get down there, whether that meets the criteria, and then just to ensure that the securing of the booths are appropriate for safety reasons. There were some concerns from residents in regards to dogs. I think that's been taken care of as far as signage is concerned. But aside from those issues, unless staff wants to comment, that was basically my comments on the item.
Any other comments from council or action from council?
Motion to approve. Item
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item 8, public hearings. There are none this evening. Item 9, public comment for items not on the agenda. It's the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Is there anyone wishing to address the council? Okay. I need you to go to the microphone. I need you to give your name and street name for the record, please. Clerk will turn on the timer.
Greetings, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members. My name is Ison Alotat, Pine Street. My comment is a concern and a request. I ask you to bear with me if I go into overtime. Please be patient. I've spoken with a number of San Bruno residents, and they vary from wide communities from the Latin, Polynesian, Skyline College, my church, among others. And there seems to be a common opinion across the board that voices at least cynicism to dissatisfaction in regards to the San Bruno police. And now, I was at Skyline earlier this evening, and there was a meeting held in regards to the efforts of all of the law enforcement agencies involved with the shooting. And I do commend them despite all of the complaints that were put forth. However, this doesn't excuse the fact that I was in the police lobby when the incident occurred, and it was said to me that no one was available to assist me because all of the police officers were at the Skyline campus. Does this mean that while the lockdown was occurring at Skyline College that the rest of the world stopped? I was told that no one was available to help me at the police department. And it stresses me when I learned at that meeting at school today that a female professor was searched and guns were drawn on her, because that woman could be me. It shows an awful light within the law enforcement community when someone fears the police. For me, and there exists others in the same boat, I don't feel safe around the police. And my experiences, as well as stories that I've heard, and what I've witnessed is unfortunately more negative than positive. Now, I was never jaded before, and I still hold a deep respect and admiration for the profession and understand that it's most likely a small minority of police officers that act outside the parameters of the law, as well as government officials. But with all that said, I have been trying, and to no avail, been trying to get a hold of my local representatives, and unfortunately no one's gotten back to me. But I've been attempting to have a referendum passed so that it can be an option for the San Bruno residents to create the position of a police or law commissioner. I filed an internal complaint and wasn't exactly satisfied with the non-results. Filing external grievances requires civil action, which isn't always the case. I don't want money for what happened to me. I want problems addressed and fixed. If a law is not upheld by the women and men who are sworn to protect it, then it's broken. And sometimes criminal prosecution is necessary in law enforcement as a deterrent. I'd like to know if San Bruno Police Department has audits. If so, how frequently? And when was the last one? And why was it told to me by the San Bruno Police Department employee that I wasn't allowed to learn the police department number? Because I know for a fact each jurisdiction or precinct has one. And also, in addition, if a position was created for a law commissioner, there is an existing real need for the position despite budget constraints. Having a crime prevention committee doesn't exactly fully encompass the need for overview and accountability within the system. I want this position because I don't believe I'll do a good job. I know I'll do a good job. I possess the fortitude, integrity, and passion such a task would require, and I'm after that position to impact positive change within the community. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Just one question. You mentioned you have not been able, you've contacted your representatives and no one's gotten back to you.
I've emailed Nancy Pelosi
Okay.
and
I
Anna
just want to
attempted
be
to
clear
leave
that
voice
you were talking about
messages.
there's no one here, because I would say I haven't heard from you except
Yeah,
for
this is
tonight.
my first step with
Okay.
City
Not
Council.
a problem. Appreciate it. If you want to give off the record, give your exact address to the clerk. We'll see if we can't get someone to contact you with a phone number and give you some answers to your questions. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Through
you.
the chair, though it is public
Councilmember
comment, just as an FYI too, there is a committee called the Citizens Crime Prevention Committee. Robert here is the chairperson. That's made up of citizens of the community with a liaison from the police department. That might also be another option if you wish to participate or be a voice there as well. And please, their open meetings, you're always welcome to attend.
Yeah.
Thursday every month, 7 o'clock
Yeah.
City Hall. Sorry.
Thank you.
Item 10, conduct of business. A, receive report and approve response to the grand jury report entitled Reversing the Upward Trajectory of Employee Costs in the Cities of San Mateo County. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The item before you tonight is a draft response to a grand jury report that was prepared and circulated to all of the cities in San Mateo County at the beginning of June of this year. As the council knows, the grand jury, each county is required to impanel a grand jury every year, and that grand jury is tasked with the responsibility of evaluating at its choice certain public agency issues as it deems appropriate. When the grand jury prepares and releases a report, that report is distributed to the agencies to which it is relevant. And typically, those agencies are required to provide a response to the grand jury's findings and their recommendations. As I indicated, this particular report was distributed and has as its subject each and every of the 20 cities in San Mateo County, and in particular, what the grand jury calls the upward trajectory of employee costs in each of these cities. The grand jury has conducted an evaluation and has researched and reported on certain aspects and certain facts related to the cost of employees, numbers of employees, and related items in each of our cities. And that information, as it has been assembled by the grand jury, is included in the grand jury's report. As the title of the report indicates, the grand jury has concluded that there is a significant problem and a significant need to address employee costs in each of our cities. The grand jury's conclusion is based on the fact, or among the facts, among the issues that the grand jury analyzed and reported on and uses as the basis of its conclusion, is the fact that our cities and indeed our state and our nation are experiencing a significant recessionary economy that has reduced significantly, in many cases, resources within each of our agencies that can be devoted to critical and necessary public services. As the grand jury's report also indicates, it's not uncommon and in fact is typical that employee costs are the single most significant cost factor or expenditure item within each of our cities, because we are in fact public service agencies, and so it's to be expected that a very significant percentage, and that as reported in the grand jury's findings, is roughly 70% of costs in each of our agencies is devoted to employee compensation, or the total of employee compensation. Given that resources have been reduced and costs for employee compensation is a significant cost factor in delivering public services, the grand jury concludes that it is the employee costs which is the problem. And while, as our draft response demonstrates, there are many areas of the grand jury's findings and conclusions with which the draft response and your staff actually agrees enthusiastically with. There are numbers of the conclusions or the recommendations that we believe and are recommending to you may be a little bit off the mark in terms of both the analysis as well as the conclusion and the recommendation. And we'll talk, we wanted to go through those with you tonight. The material is actually fairly lengthy and fairly complex. And what I wanted to do first, and then I'm going to ask our Administrative Services Director, Jim O'Leary, to make some additional comments. I wanted to cover some of those topic areas that the grand jury has addressed that are sort of the most significant or most overarching conclusions that the grand jury has reached, and to give you a brief comment on what the draft response says about that. The first, those three areas are employee retirement costs, the costs for retiree medical benefits or premiums, And thirdly, the area, the general area of the appropriate manner in which a community or a city ought to be establishing its compensation philosophy and policy. Those are the areas that I'll comment on, and then Jim will comment on several of the other more detailed areas of the grand jury's findings. First, as it relates to retirement costs, this is an area that has been the subject of a great deal of discussion in our state for a long time, for many years now. And it is the subject of some previous activity and what I expect will be a renewed interest in legislative reform. As you know, this city and the other cities in our county participate in the CalPERS, or California Public Employee Retirement System program for retirement benefits. That system provides a defined benefit program that is based on numbers of years of service and compensation at the conclusion of a public employee's career, and a formula that essentially provides a certain level of benefit based on numbers of years and compensation at the end of the career, just prior to retirement. As the council is aware, costs for the PERS program are borne jointly by employees and by the city or the public agency member of PERS. And recently, and this is the subject of the grand jury's concern, recently, and particularly in the last 12 months or so, PERS costs have been seriously, or rather PERS resources have been seriously impacted by the recessionary economy, and in particular the PERS's loss in investment earnings. The system itself is based on the provision of retirement benefits based largely upon investment earnings, and then as well by the employee contributions and the employer contributions. In times when investment earnings are not adequate to meet the PERS target, public employer rates can be impacted by increases. And that has, in fact, been the case over the past number of years. It is more significantly the case right now, and although the PERS rate increase lags the actual situation of the investment earnings decline, we are expecting an additional amount and probably a significant increase in our rates as a result of the current economic situation. PERS has concluded, the grand jury has concluded that the current level of benefit is unsustainable for our communities. And as I said before, this is an issue which discussion of this issue has long predated the grand jury's analysis and their evaluation. And it has, in fact, been the subject of significant discussion among my colleagues and myself in the forum of the San Mateo County City Managers Association. Along with our colleagues in Santa Clara County, our group has taken a step to develop a position paper that articulates some issues relative to the PERS system, our participation in it, and the recommendation for a need to seriously evaluate the level of benefit that is currently provided and whether that is sustainable as a matter of policy into the long-term future. Our conclusion is similar to the grand jury's conclusion, that we are well advised to begin seriously looking at and working with our labor representatives to initiate a readjustment of the benefit formula that many of our communities, including San Bruno, signed on to many years ago at a time when the employer rates were very low or actually zero. In our case, we are one of roughly, I would say, 60% or so of the communities in San Mateo County who use the enhanced formula both for safety as well as for non-safety employees. And the recommendation both of the city managers, the joint city managers associations, and the grand jury is that we work towards the establishment of what is called a two-tiered system, whereby new hires coming into public service who are not yet members of PERS would be put into a program that has a lower ultimate formula, both for safety and for non-safety. In conjunction with the other cities in our area, we believe that that is a viable recommendation and one that should be considered by this city as it is being considered by our colleagues up and down the peninsula. I need to say, and as we have said in the draft response to the grand jury, there is no immediate cost savings that would result from such a strategy, the creation of a two-tiered retirement system. However, it is possible that savings would be realized, or at least cost increases could be contained into the long-term future. And simply as a matter of public policy, we think that throwing out the baby with the bathwater is probably not a good idea, i.e., total reform of the PERS system. However, a ratcheting back, if you will, of the level of the benefit does make sense in the long term and is something that both your city managers as well as the grand jury conclude is a viable recommendation. Many others of the recommendations in the grand jury's report, I guess I will say right at the outset, at least in the detail and the way that the grand jury has analyzed them, I am not as strongly endorsing. In many of the recommendations, we have included in the draft response a statement that these are items that we should and will look at as part of the annual negotiations and budget setting process. And that is the case with the retiree medical benefit item. I think the grand jury was not completely aware that the city of San Bruno actually has a somewhat unique structure with respect to its retiree medical. And where the grand jury recommends that retiree medical benefits should be paid by the retiree, in fact, the city of San Bruno does not incur a specific cost related to the provision of the retiree medical benefit, as you are well aware. So we are not recommending that there be a major change to the way that this city actually handles that particular benefit. The response in this area also indicates, as do many of our responses in the draft document that you have in front of you tonight, a comment that, in fact, San Bruno has demonstrated a leadership position in many of the areas that the grand jury has addressed. And retiree, or rather the medical benefit as an item all by itself, is one where I would say that San Bruno has demonstrated a very strong leadership position and a very strong understanding of the reality of the impact that escalating medical costs have created for our organization as well as for others, both private and public sectors. Third area I want to comment on is the grand jury's several recommendations related to the establishment of city policy with respect to compensation. In this area, the grand jury has some fairly strong recommendations for an increase in public involvement up to and including the establishment of a citizen task force that would be tasked with developing an action plan for the city councils that would essentially establish the city's compensation philosophy and would guide negotiations and the overall area of employee compensation management. Fundamentally, this response, and I should note that this response tracks on a similar responses made by others of our colleagues in other cities. This response suggests that, in fact, the City Council, and this City Council in particular, is not only well prepared, but very well understands its role and its obligation in this very, very important area of organization management and policy setting. There are many examples of how this City Council has managed the budget development process and with careful consideration of employee compensation related matters, how this council has demonstrated leadership and maintained a very strong policy position in support of containment of costs where appropriate related to compensation related issues. And beyond that, where this council has demonstrated its willingness to make tough decisions when those must be made with respect to the levels of public service that are affordable and the numbers of staff that must be employed or that are affordable to be employed in order to deliver those public services. So in general terms, this response suggests that the recommendation for the establishment of a citizen task force and the companion recommendation that a ballot measure potentially be established that would vest the public generally with this type of important policy setting. This response suggests that those recommendations are not as highly supported and are in fact not expected to be implemented here in San Bruno. I call those out for your attention because it's obviously important. This is your response, and it's obviously important that it reflects your particular understanding and opinion with respect to the areas that the grand jury has called out. With that, I'm going to ask Jim to quickly review some of the other areas of the grand jury's recommendations and the general comments that this response makes.
Again, just completing the overview of the recommendations by the grand jury that are covered by the draft response from the City Council in the agenda packet. There are really 4 other areas of consideration by the grand jury. The first is to renegotiate contracts with unions to modify current benefits provided to employees with a partial goal of, again, in this area, creating a 2-tier system for existing employees and for new employees. The grand jury's comments cover sick leave, vacation, and personal days provided as part of a compensation package. Again, your response as drafted points out that these and other benefits that exist have been agreed to following bargaining in good faith with the units, and that these are all part of a compensation package that is the subject of negotiations on an annual or periodic basis with the expiration of MOUs. The next round of negotiations, which would begin next year, and again, as the council sets the strategy and determines the level of compensation to be negotiated, these are subjects that the council may want to consider. The next area in the grand jury's report is to initiate what they're saying competitive hiring practices, which considers such things as doing more comparability of jobs and job salaries between the private and public sector. Similarly, a more market-oriented compensation practice related to the number of applicants and the demand for positions. They specifically call out considering the number of applicants when negotiating salaries, and then to outreach to colleges, community colleges, veterans groups, and high schools to maximize the number of individuals involved in the competitive process. Among other points in the response, just to point out as it relates to the comparability of jobs between the private and public sector, in our general fund, nearly 1/2 of the positions are police and fire positions, which obviously presents an obstacle for comparability in the private sector. So the comparability presents a challenge. It is something that we are always looking at, but there is that challenge of, in fact, finding comparable jobs and finding information, salary information in the private sector that is much more proprietary. Wanted to point out, and the report makes the case for the extensive outreach for recruitment purposes that the city's Human Resources Department, in conjunction with Human Resources Departments throughout the county, are making to maximize the pool of applicants for positions. The report also talks about the perceived need to reduce the need for the number of staff through either expanded technology, contracting out, or what they're calling partnerships. Again, your response discusses the extensive use of technology by the city and the positive impact that has had. In the area of contracting out, there is a great deal of contract services provided, all the way from animal control to crossing guards to other use of contracts, and that is been an undertaking of the city. And again, the creating of partnerships, probably the most noteworthy being the shared services agreement that the city has for fire chief and battalion chief services with the city of Millbrae. That has been both a functional good thing for both cities, and it has had budgetary impacts and has allowed for further reduction of our workforce. And again, your response reports to the grand jury just the reduction in the number of staff that has occurred in the general fund and elsewhere within the city organization since the early 2000s, and the very, very low number in the reduction of over 30 positions in the general fund over that period. The last area then involved public involvement, and I think the city manager had a couple of comments in this area, but they suggested holding public meetings prior to negotiations and approval of agreements. Again, your response points out that the city council approves agreements in the public forum, that these are agenda items open to the public when the council considers these. Further, the grand jury suggests making the MOUs and salary information public. That is done, again, as I mentioned, at the public meetings, but both all of the bargaining unit agreements and the salary schedule for quite a period of time has existed on the web page of the city and is accessible to all the public at any time. So that information has been made public to a large extent. So those are the remaining areas that the report covers. Did you want to talk about public? I think that really is our overview of your response, and we'd be glad to give any clarification or answer any questions you have.
Any questions of staff or comments from council? If not, direction to send the letter that was provided in the packet.
I agree. I was just going to say, it sounds like you made a very complicated issue very clear. The public often looks at cities and their salary, their budgets, and want to know how come everything is so high, how come the salaries are so high, what do we have to show for it? And the more times we repeat it, cities don't produce anything. They're a service organization, really. I think the better it is, and maybe everyone will learn a little bit.
Any other
That's it.
comments? If not, we should probably have just a motion to.
Through the
approve
chair,
the
motion
response.
to approve the response to the grand jury.
Second.
Motion and second, in discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 10B, adopt resolution amending the 2009-2010 capital improvement program, adding Caltrain grade separation project and appropriating a project budget of $250,000. Clara?
Honorable Mayor, Council members, at your last council meeting, Caltrain personnel had a extensive presentation on the San Bruno grade separation project, presenting the scope, the schedule, and the budget for this very critical and important project for the city of San Bruno. The last document signed in connection with this major project is dated back in February 24th of 2005, and the city manager signed a memorandum of understanding with Caltrain, indicating that there are still some final design element needed to be agreed on by the city and Caltrain, which will be agreed on during the final design phase. Reason why, after the presentation last council meeting, the city manager indicated to you that the department will come back at your next council meeting, which is tonight, to request support for financial resources in order for us to be able to fulfill that important role and to collaborate and work together with Caltrain on the final design, reviewing the design, and being partner in the development of the project. This is just a reminder of the rendering what was shown to you at the last meeting. I just want to remind you that how Caltrain presented to you at your last meeting, this project is under a extremely aggressive schedule, which will be very challenging for both of the agencies, Caltrain and us, to effectively collaborate and clarify all of the still outstanding issue on this project. Reason why will be very important for us to have enough resources available to us to be effective in making that to happen. For what purpose these resources will be used for? Internal staff time, expertise support will be, the support needed will be different during the development of the project, will be a different need for expertise support during the design phase and design review phase of the project. Then will be a different need during the construction of the project. The city manager already approved entering in a contractual agreement with a consultant, mainly structural engineering firm, to help us reviewing the existing 35% and 65% proposed plan by Caltrain. Our request today for you to consider to establish a new project in our CIP for the San Bruno Great Separation Project, and to appropriate a $250,000 redevelopment fund for this project development support for the city internal and external resources. If you have any question.
Questions of staff?
Through the chair.
Councilmember Medina?
Just really quick, I mean, I understand it was delayed, and then we wanted it to get going, and now it is. So I guess, be careful what you wish for. But I still have the concern of when things are fast-tracked, that at times, and I know staff is being diligent, and I appreciate that, but that little things don't get overlooked, that it's not we don't have the time, we don't have the resources, and this is the way it's got to be. So I have a concern that we ensure and we strive for keeping what we want, because this is obviously going to be a huge thing for the city as you enter in and have to see this for some time to come. The other thing is on Posey Park, and I know it's going to be redone. There is a significance to that. In 1974, it was a San Mateo Avenue improvement, which is noted by a plaque. So hopefully that maintains. There's a rock with a plaque there. You may not see where it is because the bushes are all around it, but there is something of a historical perspective that we should keep sight of. But again, I appreciate staff's diligence, but again, I just want to really emphasize the concern I have as far as what happens when fast-track things occur, what the outcome sometimes it may not be so favorable for us, and I want to hopefully ensure that to the best of our ability, we make sure it is.
I certainly appreciate your comment. I think that challenge is recognized by certainly the city manager and all of us, and this will be the biggest challenge on this project now in order for us to meet that June of next year deadline with contract award for this project. It is a very challenging proposition, and certainly will assume a full dedication of our time and resources to be able to meet that deadline.
If I could just add, the Public Services Director has correctly and clearly articulated our very similar concern to that which was just articulated by the council member. This will be by many times the largest and most complicated project that will be constructed in San Bruno for in our lifetimes probably. It will require a very significant amount of attention. That attention has already been being provided. But as I have clearly articulated to Caltrain, we literally have a fraction of the percentage of the resources that agency has, and we will be needing to assert ourselves in this process as we need to on the fast track that Caltrain has specified. We're not going to allow this project to run over us, and we, as much as this has been on a top priority of the City Council and the community now for many years, simply getting it done is not the right answer. Clara has personally devoted herself to this project over the last 2 months that it has been reactivated, and I think you've already benefited by the new perspective that she's brought to the project. So neither are we viewing this as it's essentially already done, just go build it, nor are we viewing it as do anything you have to do in order to get it done fast. So that's the reason for our recommendation tonight, is help us maintain the priority that you've clearly articulated.
Any other comments from council? A member of the public?
Excuse me, Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. I've just got a couple concerns. Caltrain at the last meeting said that there's a due date by which the all the design needs to be agreed to, that they're only 35 or 65% there. Then they also commented that there's $30 million or whatever, and that seems to be a top dollar. I'm just afraid that I don't think the city has leverage, and if they're going to come up and say, well, we would love to give you a elevator, we'd love to give you this, or we'd love to give you that, but there's only so much money, and therefore tough. It's not going to happen. I think we need to approve the money and approve the oversight, but I sure wish we had some leverage and could be more assured that we're going to get what the CAC suggested, what the council and the redevelopment agency and the city has been talking about as to key features there. I'm just very hesitant that we're going to get anywhere with what we want, and I don't know how we can leverage anything. Thank you.
Any other comments from council or action from council?
Through the chair, I'd like to introduce a resolution for adoption.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Ruane.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Mayor Franzella.
Aye. Item 10C, receive report and provide direction to staff on priorities for sidewalk repair program for 2009-2010.
At the end of July, the council approved to award the contract to a concrete repair contractor to work on our Phase 2 sidewalk repair program. At that time, during the presentation, I indicated that I will be back before you, making recommendation for your consideration on the priorities for Phase 2 sidewalk repair program, and also to seek your direction on some other long-term policy question in regards to the sidewalk management and also right-of-way management. You have a very detailed and extensive report in front of you. I will just highlight a few points from that presentation and to ask your direction on those major points. As detailed in the staff report, this is Phase 2 of the sidewalk repair program. Based on the 2004 inventory, you gave already direction to the department on your expectation for Phase 1 of the implementation of the program. After the implementation of Phase 1, how you can see, still is a reasonably high number of damaged sidewalk which needs to be addressed by the city, and also a very high number of damaged sidewalk under the landowner's responsibilities also still needs to be addressed. Is a total of 701 location under the city's responsibility, and 2,100 location of the sidewalk need to be repaired under the landowner's, property owner's responsibilities. But I would like to ask you tonight to give us direction on the sidewalk repair priorities which will fall under the city's responsibilities, and also to give policy direction on our approach in regards to the property owner responsibilities. And also some long-term expectation for us on right-of-way maintenance responsibility and how to manage right-of-way maintenance issue for the city. On sidewalk repair priorities, our recommendation is at this time to fix the remaining 83 worst locations in the city. Then as the next priority to address the damaged sidewalk and to proceed with the repair of those locations in the pedestrian emphasized zone area, and to apply the same principles to the ADA ramps throughout the city, and then to go to the next step, and based on the recommendation how to divide the city based on the number of damaged sidewalk locations on different neighborhood zones, to proceed and to start to repair those locations for neighborhood zone 4, as long as our funding will support. Probably it's our expectation that will not be repaired all of the location in neighborhood zone 4, but to repair as many locations is possible. You have here, based on intensity of damaged sidewalk, our recommendation of different neighborhood zones, and how I indicated our recommendation is to proceed with zone number 4. And here you have the pedestrian emphasized zone as was established in our general plan approved last year. After your consideration on the specific priority on the sidewalk repair, our request also to give us policy direction on how to address the property owner's responsibilities. During our phase 1 discussion, when this program was started, your direction was to address first city's responsibility and to lead by example, and then to request the property owners to be part of the program based on volunteer basis. And also you indicated after the implementation of the phase 1, you will further consider how the city would need to approach the property owner's responsibility managing the sidewalk. As the sidewalk maintenance and overall the whole right-of-way management really is a quality of life issue for the city as a whole. It's a public safety, but also is a public health issue. How the sidewalk is maintained, how the whole environment in the city feels like and looks like. Reason why you have a specific state law and placing responsibility to maintain the sidewalk in a good repair state, and also you have the city code, which basically states the same obligation for the property owners to maintain the sidewalk. And this is the policy direction what I am asking you to give us tonight. I will summarize our recommendation on the sidewalk repair priorities to address those 83 remaining worst locations, then to proceed and to repair the locations in the pedestrian emphasized area. Also is part of our recommendation in the pedestrian emphasized zone, considering the broader public benefit, maintaining the sidewalk through the emphasized area. Is our recommendation for you to consider to pay 25% of the cost of the repair of those sidewalk, and then to proceed with zone 4. And also for you to consider to require in phase 2 or not from the property owners, and to mandate from the property owners to repair the sidewalk in front of their property. If you have any question, further policy direction for us.
Questions to staff? Councilwoman
I,
O'Connell?
thank you. In the staff summary on page 3, it talks about requiring private repair to begin work within 30 days from first notice to repair. And then it talks about the work must be completed within 60 days from first notice to repair. So if somebody has a broken, well, I guess first of all, we have to decide if we're going to have people do the private thing. But on this, it kind of concerned me as part of that we would give someone a notice, we would expect them to do the work within 30 days, to start the work within 30 days, and to finish it within 60 days. And to me, that's a safety hazard right there, that you're allowing someone to work on the sidewalk for 30 days, basically. So as we're going through this, I would like us to consider changing the time frame for those kinds of things unless it's precluded by law. But to allow someone to start work and then not to have to finish it for
Right.
30 days is kind of dicey. So,
Any other comments at this time from council? I need you to restate your name and street name for the record.
Ison Alotat, Pine Street. On the behalf of my family, I'd like to ask for some clarification. Is it your suggestion that you mandate that property owners fix the sidewalk in front of their homes and that we pay 75% of the costs to fix public property?
Currently, the code requires all property owners adjacent to sidewalk to be responsible for repairing the property unless the property was damaged by a city tree. And part of the proposal is that there's a pedestrian zone that goes through the city that was shown on the map. A lot of it is El Camino, San Bruno Avenue, some of the areas where you would anticipate more pedestrians. And because it's used by more members of the public, the city is recommending that the city pay 25% of those repairs on sidewalks within those zones.
As a resident, I would request that perhaps the city pay 50% or 75% of the costs to repair the sidewalk, because if it's no fault to the resident or the property owner that the sidewalk is damaged, why should they pay for majority of the costs?
Well, and that's what the code is right now, is that it's 100%. Thank you. Other council comments, or?
well, through the chair,
Hmm?
I think first, I think we should be very clear to everyone that we, as far as I remember, have never required anyone until very recently to participate and to maintain the sidewalks and to actually pay for sidewalk repair. So while it's on the books and while it's a state law, people are going to get kind of sticker shock when they realize that, yes, by law, they should have been maintaining the sidewalks in front of their homes all these years. So that
I completely agree with you, and because we haven't actively pursued enforcing that, has allowed our sidewalks to get to a point where you had a 2004 survey that showed you had over 3,000 areas that needed immediate attention.
Right,
So it's kind of
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm not
and-
saying not to do it, I'm just
Right.
saying we need to make sure part of this whole package is that we make it clear to people that we're not enforcing a new law and we're not changing the law. The law is there, has been there, and what we're doing is trying to ease people into it and trying to repair the sidewalks the best we can. So that's,
Well, and I think one of the programs that worked well is working with a city contractor. And I think that should be done, if it can be done a couple times a year, trying to get people to buy in and take care of it at a much reduced rate. When there's a city contractor doing it, that's doing a whole big section of sidewalks, it's much cheaper than an individual homeowner doing one piece of sidewalk.
I would like just to follow up with one comment. During our discussion with the subcommittee also, for that reason that this requirement always was in the books, but so to speak, but never enforced yet, the subcommittee emphasized the need to have a very aggressive public education and outreach to really develop some kind of flyers and communications with the public at large to communicate this change in expectation more than anything else, that the law was already in place, but certainly wasn't, the expectation wasn't met, and that expectation never was enforced by the city. And also, I would like to follow up to Councilmember O'Connor comment. Was our intent to really give them 60 days, and certainly these are details which can be improved and finalized, to really give them more time to basically to fulfill that expectation, that to give them longer time to address the sidewalk damage.
Oh, I understand that. It's not the 60 days, it's the 30, it's, unless I'm reading it wrong, which is quite possible. Above the 60 days, it says, require private repair to begin within 30 days from first notice. So you get a notice, you have 30 days to start, and then the next line says, the work must be completed within 60 days. So that allows 30 days of sidewalk to be up and exposed to more tripping hazards. So either say it has to be done within 60 days and take the 30 days away maybe. I don't know what the solution is, but I don't think you should have both of them together.
The concern that you have is you're going to start homeowner weekend projects that you're going to dig it up one weekend and for 7 days it's going to be open, and I mean there has to be some type of control. Clearly, if you went out and you were hiring a contractor, if they started within 30 days, they'd be well done before 60 days came along and you wouldn't have to worry about it. But if you've got the homeowner doing the project, you could do a square at a time or frame it and not complete it. And
I hear your comment, and certainly I will take back for further consideration and to shorten that time. Based on our procedure today, has to be a qualified contractor to work in the right of way. That the sidewalk can be repaired only just by a qualified contractor to guarantee the quality of work.
Okay, and that might be something that needs to be more clearly explained and laid out in your education process with the public, okay? And certainly if I don't think the council cares if you're even to say that it was going to be 90 days that it be completed within. I think a reasonable amount of time the council's certainly in favor of. It's just we've seen too many housing projects that get started and continue on and never get completed, and there's nobody that's walking across the front of the house, let alone now a sidewalk that you could have completely torn up and never getting completed and creating a hazard. Worse than the hazard that was there they set out to fix.
Through the chair.
Councilmember Medina?
Sitting on the subcommittee with Councilmember Ibarra, one of our concerns was that this has been on the books. It is law, state and local. But again, those folks who have lived within their residence or in this community for decades have never been asked or broached with this subject. So it is a huge educational experience that is going to need to be done first and foremost. But the other thing too is that, in 2007, there was a measure placed before the voters for monies to help offset and repair streets and sidewalks. And the voters spoke and it was defeated. And so the problem doesn't go away. The issue still needs to be addressed. And of course, as was pointed out, as time goes on, those things get worse, not better. The longer we hold off, the longer we wait, the worse it gets. So this is another reason we have going to have to move forward and address it and not push it off because it's not going to get any better anytime soon. This is a concern that we did have, and we're hoping that staff goes beyond the call. I mean, so that we could sit up here, and if the room should fill up, it's not that they didn't know about it, they didn't get a notice, they didn't understand, that it's something in simple terms, very specific and simplistic, so that anybody can understand, and it can walk them through the process and the procedures that are needed. We need to make it user-friendly, and that's a concern, so that we're speaking to the people so that they understand what's really before them and what the requirements may be.
Any other comments from council?
If I can
Staff?
make one follow-up comment that on the overall right-of-way maintenance issue, that this is just raised as a other policy issue for you to consider later on. Wasn't enough work done yet by staff to be able to come back to come with a recommendation to you, but certainly that's another policy question, but will require your future attention, like the planter strip, maintenance, and overall everything in the right-of-way, how it's maintained.
Through the chair, I have one more comment. A few years ago, the city received grant money, or applied for a grant rather, and received money to purchase sidewalks made from recycled tires. And the purpose of those was to help impede the root system of trees so that they could help save mature trees while still fixing the sidewalks. I know some people love them because they're easy to walk on and they're cushiony. I know some people don't like them because they're an off color and they don't blend in with the sidewalks as much as they could. I think they're a fabulous use of tires, and I walk my dog on them all the time, and I think they're great to walk on. So I would like us to, as a side to this, continue pursuing grants. I know they are offered every year, and I'm also aware, and I will get you the paperwork as soon as I can, that the color that we have is not the only color that they come in. They do come in lighter colors, so maybe we can appease everyone and get a different color and find some places where that sidewalk can be used.
Through the chair, just on that, since you brought that up, grants are good, and if there's other colors, that's great too. But I think if that were ever done again and it was going to be in front of someone's home, I think it is the responsibility of the city to go and ask that homeowner if that's the type of material that they'd wish, because they have to live with it, they have to see it, and if it's not aesthetically pleasing to them, it's not fair that that's what they need to live with either. I know it has a lot of positive qualities, but there are, as the Councilwoman said, there are many people who feel differently about the aesthetics of it and the different color of it.
Okay. Oh, and I'm sorry, one more point.
Okay.
Speaking of sidewalks and color, there are a few glitches, and I guess, and there's different people who've done their sidewalks or had them done in different colors. And I don't mean dark gray or light gray, I mean pink and salmon and different colors. So I don't know what we want to do about that, and maybe as you're educating people about the whole aspect of it, it should be clear that it should be a gray color that blends in with the rest of the sidewalks. I'm assuming the council wants to do that.
I will consider all of your comments, and the city certainly should have a standard how the sidewalk would need to look like, and I will take in consideration all of your great feedback tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a detailed report. Item D, adopt resolution authorizing city manager to execute construction agreement with G. Bartolotto and Company Incorporated for American Reinvestment and Recovery Act paving project number 84210, federal aided project number ESPL 5226 in the amount of $629,228, and approving the construction budget in the amount of $692,228.
Earlier in the year, the council approved for us to send a application for the federal funding for the stimulus package. And the city, based on your approval, applied for 4 projects to fund with federal funding. The city received a final federal funding approval of $639,000, and based on that $639,000 federal funding allocation went out for a bid and received 8 different bid proposals. And as you can see, the lowest bid was for $957,000. This funding will support the implementation of 3 projects, and is shown on this map. Those 3 projects are Parkway, or City Parkway, Crestwood Drive, and Genevieve Avenue. To have enough funding for the unforeseen construction contingencies, is our recommendation to add to our budget for this project a $53,000 Measure A funding, and to approve the funding for $692,000 with 10% contingency, of which $639,000 is federal stimulus funding and $53,000 Measure A local funding. This is based on our information available today. This is the federal stimulus allocation for transportation purposes for the city of San Bruno. Is based on our information, is no other federal stimulus funding is available for transportation at this time. Our recommendation is for you to approve to award this contract for that dollar amount. If you have any question or comment.
Any questions of council? And action from council?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ruane.
Aye.
Mayor Franzella.
Aye. Item 11, reports of commission, boards, and committees. There are none. Item 12, comments from council members. Any comments?
Through the chair. I had told the gentleman that Vice Mayor and I had spoke to in regards to his concern in regards to recycling thefts. It's ongoing where he's at, but obviously this is an issue that faces the state, faces our community. And one thing that I think some folks don't realize is that the items that are in the recycling container are actually not just open for anyone to help themselves. There is an ordinance, there is a violation, and it is citable. These items that go to the San Bruno Garbage Company are not their profit. It doesn't go into their pockets. What it helps to do is helps to offset what we pay as ratepayers. So when we have folks, and we're not just talking the mom and pop is going down to collect a few cans, we're talking folks that actually make this big business, who have bags and bags and are ahead of the garbage people when they're actually picking it up. There's a new law that was passed by the state so that you have to give your license if it's over $100 of paper, if it's over $50 of bottles or cans, and this was an effort by the state legislature to hopefully try to impede some of this activity that is making big business for certain folks. So if it is occurring, you are able to call the police. Obviously, there is a prioritization of calls and what's going on at that time. But it is an offense. It is against municipal code to be scavenging. My other concern is I've actually seen folks go on people's property to go through it before they even put it to the curb, and that's trespassing. And my concern is, again, if somebody comes onto my property and hurts themselves because they want to go through my waste can, am I going to be held liable and responsible for my insurance company when they sue? So it's just bigger than just the one thing of somebody helping themselves. It goes much broader than that, and I know there's been efforts by the San Bruno Garbage Company, the San Bruno Police Department, and staff, but I also just want to re-educate and let the public know that it has a bigger effect than just somebody picking out a couple items out of the can.
Through the chair.
Councilmember.
Two things I want to echo what Councilmember Medina said. I did speak to the same individual, and we had a very long, lengthy email from Tammy Delveni with the garbage company head of all recycling for NorCal, now Recology. And we will have subsequent discussions with her and the garbage facility to see what we might be able to do to enhance some of the enforcement that's going on. This economy now, people are just reaching out for whatever they can as far as dimes and dollars. It's unfortunate that, in fact, it is theft. Number two, we all just came from a plaque unveilment at the new pump station over in Maple, and I just wanted to congratulate staff and Public Works and everybody that was involved in that. It's a great facility, not just for pumping, but for public safety down the road, and it's going to serve the city for many years.
Any other comments? Okay, at this time, I'd like to recess the city council and call the redevelopment agency to order, please.
Agency Member O'Connell.
Here.
Agency Member Medina.
Here.
Vice Chair Ruane.
Here.
Vice Chair Frenzella. Chair Frenzella.
Here. Okay, and the minutes of the redevelopment agency, the last redevelopment agency committee will stand approved as submitted unless there's any changes or corrections. Okay, the minutes will stand approved. There are no items on a consent calendar. And the item before us tonight is the, to adopt a resolution authorizing the executive director to execute a contract with Rosno Spavek Group in an amount not to exceed $32,530 for the preparation of a third five-year implementation plan for the redevelopment project area.
Thank you and good evening. The state of California requires every redevelopment agency to update their implementation plan every 5 years. And the implementation plan that we're discussing tonight is San Bruno's third implementation plan and will cover the years 2010 through 2014. The state of California has very specific requirements that must be met, including documenting affordable housing production and a detailed report of redevelopment plan goals and objectives. However, the plan can also be used as an implementation tool, detailing how redevelopment can be used to meet citywide goals and programs. And because the redevelopment agency was relatively young when we did the first two implementation plans, it was not used this way. It was used simply to meet the minimum state requirements. However, the agency is in a much different position today than it was 5 years ago for several reasons. Number one, as you've heard us say before, we're doing a number of planning studies right now. We just finished the general plan, which had a number of policies and programs in it. We're in the middle of a transit corridor plan, and we just sent a housing element to the state. It's important that we use every tool that we can to implement policies and programs within these documents, and redevelopment is probably the most important tool that we can use, so it's important that we learn how we can use it most effectively. Second, we're at the point in which our tax increment has grown significantly over the years, and it's important to look how we could best use these funds. And third, and probably unfortunately, we have to look at how the state takeaways affect our ability to reach our redevelopment goals. With that in mind, we sent in an RFP to 11 firms and received 6 different proposals. Mark Sullivan, the Housing Redevelopment Director, and I interviewed 5 of these firms, all of which proposed similar budgets, which can be found within your staff report. Based on the interview and the proposal, staff is recommending that the agency select RSG for the completion of this implementation plan. RSG clearly demonstrated that they would not only meet the state minimum requirements and were familiar with all those requirements, but they would create a document which develops, prioritizes, and implements the city's vision. An overview of the proposed tasks can be found within the staff report, and I can answer questions on any one of those tasks. And we expect the RSG would begin work as soon as this contract is finalized, and the agency would next review this sometime within the next 1 to 2 months as part of as a kickoff study session. So I could take any questions at this time.
Any questions of staff at this time? Not any action from the agency?
Through the chair, I'll introduce a resolution for adoption.
Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Ruane,
Aye.
Agency Member Medina,
Aye.
Agency Member O'Connell,
Aye.
Chair Franzella.
Aye. Public comment, it's the agency's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the agency from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Is there anyone wishing to address the agency at this time? Seeing none, the redevelopment agency will adjourn until the next scheduled meeting. And at this time, I'd like to call the San Bruno City Council back to order. The council will go into closed session at this time for item A, closed session to provide direction to legal counsel whether to initiate litigation pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9C. Second item, closed session to provide direction to legal counsel whether to initiate litigation pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9.C. And item C, the city manager and human resources director request a closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 4957.6 regarding direction for labor negotiations with the San Bruno Police Bargaining Unit. There was a fourth closed session that has been pulled from this evening's agenda. There will be no reportable items that come from that meeting, and from there, the City Council will adjourn to the next regular City Council meeting, which will be held on September 22nd at 7 o'clock here at the San Bruno Senior Center. Thank you.